I was left for dead. That's how my journey in entrepreneurship started. I left the corporate world and my finance and MBA degrees behind me to share my story. Welcome to That Entrepreneur Show, where resilience meets hustle. Let's build and learn from our guest now.
It's not a marketing tagline, but this is really true because usually those journeys that we start together are quite long. It's at least a year long. And the main question that I ask myself, exactly the same question that the founders should ask themselves when they hire someone, is do I want to sit with the same person at the same table for the next year?
Oh, we had a great laugh behind the scenes. Well, I'm St. Petersburg, Florida. She's actually from St. Petersburg in Germany. We're going international today, but now she is over in Berlin. Olga Skipper, thank you so much for joining us here on That Entrepreneur Show.
Thank you, Vincent, for inviting me. It's really great to be here.
Oh, I'm excited to dive into this amazing background you have, over 15 years guiding startup CEOs. So everyone listening on, this is going to be a value-filled show for you because she's helping these founders get off their feet, get focused, and she does so much. Before I get into her amazing backstory, I need to welcome you to That Entrepreneur Show. Thank you for tuning in today to keep this show a top 2.5% global show. I always thank the guests, and I have to thank our listeners too because we can't do it without either of you. Today's show is brought to you by ComingAlivePodcastProduction.com and the EmpathySet.com. Be sure to check out John Ford's new app and card set out today. But as I mentioned, Olga's an experienced coach, having navigated every stage of business development from inception to IPO. She's coached over 200 leaders all over the globe. And don't worry, if you don't speak one language, she speaks a bunch. It can help you, not just in Russian, in German, but also in English. Olga, which client base do you have the most speaking languages in? I know you're worldwide, so are you predominantly English? Are you predominantly in Berlin?
Oh, it depends. It really depends on the chapter of my coaching business. It really depends on the chapter, on the historical, geopolitical chapter we're in. But I would say it's pretty much equal, or maybe like a little bit more English speaking. A lot of people with immigration background that use English as their main language, and then pretty equally German and Russian, with different countries that include that languages or use that languages as the main.
Well, it's very inspiring even for me. Spanglish, I guess you could say. I've been studying Spanish for a few years. It's very hard for me to learn as an adult the second language. So I definitely commend you in all the hard work. But you didn't just wake up one day and start helping startups, right? You had to become an entrepreneur at some point. What originally pushed you into being an entrepreneur, Olga? Why'd you start?
I was 16 and I tried to find a job, and I figured out, I was pretty clever as a child. I figured out at that time it wasn't a corporate ladder, but this work ladder is quite high and I need to climb every single step. And if I start here and then in 10 years I'll be there. And this thinking process that I'm describing to you right now is pretty long, but it was almost immediate in seconds that I realized that I'm not going to be successful with the traditional path. And I also have diagnosed ADHD, right? Which means is I'm incredibly bad with authorities. I think that I'm different and I have creative ideas, and processes are so hard for me. So at some point I tried some traditional careers. I was office manager at the same time. Then I worked at a university. And at some point I just stumbled upon a company. At that time, didn't even have a tagline startup. But it was a startup at the end of the day. And I was the first commercial person on board. And that was amazing because on one hand, there was no one in the team that had my expertise. So I could be the only one without authorities above me. And at the same time, the speed and technology, I love technology and how it helps people. Everything was just aligned at the same time.
That's amazing and very inspirational. I like to use that for everyone where don't try to force a situation that isn't uniquely you. For some people, the traditional setting makes a lot of sense. For some people, they're better on their own and they strive and they thrive just as you're doing, strive for greatness. But I love the way that I know you describe entrepreneurship as an art. Walk through our audience what this means to you.
I feel like there are two responses, or there are two assumptions that people usually have when they talk to me about entrepreneurship that nothing to do with entrepreneurship, that have no experience. They either say that entrepreneurs are those cold-hearted Excel sheet paper, like people that just calculated that something is cheap, they can sell it more expensive, and then they go with that, and they have no empathy, etc. Or on the other hand, they say that those are extremely clever people, or it's about their brains that makes them succeed. And both are true to a certain extent, but it's just a part of the story in many ways to unlock this conversation, to explain people that actually it's more like art. It creates something in this world. It comes out of the person. And also, as you just mentioned, I was an entrepreneur because I wanted to create something from the inside out. I didn't want to fit myself into a mold. I didn't want to fit myself into some kind of an organization. I wanted to create something that fits my feelings, that I wanted to hire people that I wanted to hire. I wanted to go for a product that I believed in, had a vision, and exactly the same I see it as someone would create a piece of art. I was today at the photo gallery, and maybe you know Frank Oakenfels. He has a lot of photography around celebrities, and he was photographing David Bowie. It's the same. It's no different. You're obsessed with something. And in his example, he's obsessed with photography. You and I are obsessed with creating companies and helping people for those and having conversations that we want to have for those. It is art, and it comes from deeper place than just head and prefrontal cortex.
I absolutely love everything you just said there. And I think it's certainly going to get everyone even more excited depending where they are in this entrepreneurship process. Being authentic with your art, right? Our businesses is everything. Would you agree that authenticity is one of the most important things that should not discourage entrepreneurs, but get them excited? So what? You're a new business. If you're authentic, eventually it will work out.
There are multiple dimensions of that. In general, I would say yes. I would totally agree with you. And when you start your business, it needs to be authentic because it needs to be, again, from the inside out. But there are certain chapters of that journey. And I coach, as you mentioned, I coach people that just start their companies and then they go IPO and everything in between. And we have a lot of conversations with CEOs and founders on how to be authentic, yet not ruin their company for their authenticity. How to be authentic, yet be the stable ground for their people, how to be authentic, yet have a voice that is consistent, coherent, and leads the company to success. And this is a very tricky competency to learn. And it changes all the time. It changes depending on the company, it changes depending on the team, it changes depending on you because you go for different transitions in your life. So in general, yes, authenticity is very important. And I just don't know what I would do without me being authentic. I can't lie to people, right? I can't mask myself as well. That just doesn't work. But there needs to be a certain competency to carry yourself as a CEO, as a company owner and founder, and being authentic at the same time in order to make companies succeed and not fail for your own
I love that
personality.
I absolutely love everything you just said. People will be able to tell if you're not being yourself, if you're forcing something, if you're not in the right place. And it seems like you've just done an incredible job surviving over a decade, continuing to bring businesses in, helping new businesses. But I want to circle back to something you said before, hiring, right? Working to hire. Do you have any hiring tips for our audience out here today?
It depends really on the size of your company. And
Okay.
I prefer, and it's my preference, right? I prefer early stage. I prefer this first 10 employees grinding together, sitting in the same room and having the same vibe. And I think this is very important at the very beginning of the company because we all think and we're very aware of creating diverse companies and diverse teams. And I feel like at the very beginning, it's okay if a team is very homogeneous. And homogeneous doesn't mean the same gender, the same age. It means so many different things to different people. But at the very beginning, when you're hiring, don't hire for the next 5 years. Hire for the next year. You have a year together and ask yourself a question. Do I want to spend this year with this person writing and creating this company for the next year? And if you both grow into direction that in a year you are progressing and you still want to be together, and you still see this person in the executive role, and you as the CEO can totally add other players to the team and see how it works as a group, you can really reevaluate that. Or you can have an honest conversation with the person and say, we just don't align. So two really big mistakes that I see people make is that they try at the very beginning to be very diverse And it's very good intention. I love the place where it's coming from. But at the very beginning, just be comfortable with who you're sitting with together at the same table. And the second thing, hiring for the time horizon that doesn't exist just yet. 1 year, just hire for 1 year, try it out, think about that. And I think the other misconception that I usually hear about hiring is that, and it's usually from the employees that are hired, that specifically founders and the CEOs are very fast at firing people. And here is a secret for your listeners. I had so many CEOs sitting in front of me, and I have never heard a comment saying, I fired this person way too early. Usually there is so much thought and there is so much consideration coming into every single person leaving the company that on the outside, for someone that can feel like it was a rushed decision. But trust me, in this whole journey and all my years of experience, I have never had a CEO being rushed to fire someone or being, I don't know, I just feel like this today. This person doesn't need to be here. They're really putting a lot of effort into figuring out whether that's an emotional mismatch, cultural background doesn't work, something else, maybe competence, etc. So trust yourself. If you go for this thinking, you're not rushing. It's great. Just stick to the process that is inside of you and just makes you question your own decisions.
Absolutely love that. Everyone, don't second guess yourself. Go with your gut. Oftentimes, for me at least, when I don't go with my gut, I wish I had gone with my gut. So very, very great point there. We talked about a lot of great things for early stage founders, even these hiring practices. If there's any advice you can give to an early stage founder, Olga, since you specialize with them, some things you wish you knew when you started that can maybe help some of our listeners out today, what can you offer?
Very actively ask for help. I think a lot of founders, because it's such a lonely job and day in and day out, and there are lots of things that they feel they have to know, or they feel they should know, or they feel they're not yet there, yada, yada, yada. There's a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, etc. It's blocking them from actively asking for help. And sometimes I even ask my clients to make this exercise weekly. You need to ask for help, one person. Doesn't matter in which specific area of your business, but just do it proactively and train this muscle to proactively seeking help and seeking advice and seeking a second opinion with the understanding that you are still the core of the company. Yes, they can give you advice. They can come from the outside. They can have a different view, but this is your filter inside of you that is telling you either to take this advice on you or not. And I think this is also what usually first-time founders are really struggling with, is to see themselves as experts in their own businesses. Yes, there is advice. Maybe someone is even much older than you are, much more experienced. Like even people sitting in front of me, I encourage them to see themselves as experts. And I'm just an expert in a different field. And we're talking about their company and what they want to build. And this is very important to hold this position when you're talking to someone and asking for help.
I love that, surrounding yourself with other people in expert fields and recognizing that, hey, I'm great at some things, but I can't be great at everything. Something I learned along the way as well. We're okay. Let's try to improve my weakness, turn it into a strength. Let's try to learn from people who have been there before, and you leveraging what you're best at. We've talked about the beginning, why you became. I want to talk more about right here, right now, your current business. Who is your target customer? Who can you best serve?
I serve best people that I like. It will sound really weird because it's not a marketing tagline, but this is really true, because usually those journeys that we start together are quite long. It's at least a year long. And the main question that I ask myself, exactly the same question that the founders should ask themselves when they hire someone, is, do I want to sit with the same person at the same table for the next year? And I serve a lot of people that have immigration background, because I really understand what it means when you're not from your country of origin, or you have a different country of origin, you live in the country where you're building your company. I love working with female entrepreneurs, and especially those are very conscious about both building companies and building families at the same time, because I think this is we are in a very interesting phase when those women, they don't have a role model just yet, and they're creating those role models for themselves and for the others as well. So this is very interesting for me, because it's on one hand an innovation process, at the same time it's serving someone that I can relate to, and specifically in the tech field, right, and innovation field and startup field, because again, I see a lot of leverage that technology has, and I see a lot of struggles also that this particular place, especially when it comes to mental health, brings with that. And as a neurodiverse person, I just know how to navigate those, and this is usually where we meet. Those clients that I just described to you and me, where we can combine our forces and see how we can innovate on something or create something that hasn't been created just yet.
Spoken like a true entrepreneur. Let's bring something to life that does not exist yet. Sometimes you have to
Exactly.
talk an idea into reality, right? It's nothing right now. We talk about it. We birth the idea. From there, we strategize ways to get there. Thank you for sharing exactly who you could help, because I always want our listeners to know, hey, we might have an expert specifically ready to help you today. Stick around for a few more minutes, everyone. We'll get her contact, her website, social, all that. But Olga, if you could choose to sit down with any entrepreneur, dead or alive, who would you choose to pick their brain?
Very interesting question. There are so many people that I would like to sit down with. I would definitely like to sit down with Marie Forleo. I love her. I love her energy. I feel like she's done so much amazing work also for entrepreneurs and for female leaders as well. But to be frank, if I will be completely honest with you, I don't think it's about entrepreneurs that I admire from the past, because I think that to be an entrepreneur in a specific decade and a specific chapter, you need to be really good for this particular chapter as well. So whoever created companies before, yes, they have a lot of tips and tricks and a lot of wisdom and knowledge and extremely interesting people. But I'm more interested in people that shifted societies, that shifted history, that created something else. So how did they take something that existed here and now and moved and shaped that for that particular chapter of their lives, right?
And I like the perspective you brought there. It's really, again, taking bits and pieces from other people's journeys and applying it to your own life and trying to make your journey even more powerful. Where do you see yourself going next? What's next for your company, Olga? I know you've been thriving for 15 years. Is there anything else you're working on? Are we building this? Catch our listeners up.
I think every time next is what is here and now on my plate. And it's either new technologies that are coming up, and I'm constantly learning about new technologies because I want to speak the same language with my clients. So there is a lot of work in AI right now that is done by my clients, and that's very interesting. There's a lot of work in cryptocurrencies, and it's very interesting. And it's less about me creating new products because I want to sell them in a certain way, but me asking myself very consciously a question, where do I want to create value? And I definitely want to create more value in us using, for example, AI in a conscious and ethical way. So I'm working with those founders that I can almost like supervise is the wrong word, but adult supervision is a good metaphor. I'm that person that asking them a question, is it for good or is it not for good, right? Or as I just mentioned to you, female leaders, how can we shape their reality so they can become role models? So for example, I have a little daughter, so my little daughter looking at them has someone to copy and has someone to lean on as an example. So those things are next for me. How can I help those developments, those waves, different groups of people to succeed, right? Those that I believe in.
I absolutely love that. I don't think we can top that, so I have to stop the show right here. That was an amazing ending you just gave us. Olga, thank you so much for all you brought to the show today. I learned a lot from you. Now, what everybody's been waiting for, Olga, where can we find you online?
The easiest way to find me is my website. It's just olgaskipper.com. I'm also very active on LinkedIn. So just use my name and surname and you'll find me. And this is my main hub where I also connect.
Where can we find you online?
On LinkedIn, you'll find my profile, and I'm very actively answering messages there.
Hey, Olga,
and my website. Yeah, again.
Perfect. Well, everyone, be sure to say hello to Olga. Again, this streamed live on LinkedIn and some Facebook channels, so go connect with her on those channels. The show will be live before you know it, and my name is Vincent A. Lancey. This is That Entrepreneur Show. Thank you for tuning in to keep this show a top 2.5% global show. You can learn more about the show at thatentrepreneurshow.com, That Entrepreneur Show on social media. And again, my name is Vincent A. Lancey. You can find me anywhere online at that. One more shout out to John Ford with his empathyset.com and Coming Alive podcastproduction.com. But with that, we're signing off all the way from Berlin down here to Florida. Olga, thank you so much for joining That Entrepreneur Show.
Thank you, Vincent.